a lot of people have different parenting styles, especially new parents. And that's where you really learn about someone when you have children, because you don't know how they were raised. No one talks about this on dating. It's only when you finally have a child, or maybe right before, that people talk about things that just seemed natural, how to raise a child. So maybe the way you see your spouse, who you're already negative, so you view your spouse through a negative perspective, and then you see something, maybe they're holding the baby a certain way, maybe they're doing something a certain way, maybe the way they're, bathing the baby causes you all this worry. And you think that they're being inappropriate with that baby. And you honestly believe this. So you go to the pediatrician and you report your concerns, but with your energy, with your anxiety, the doctor doesn't know what to do. And because doctors are mandatory reporters, that means they have to report inappropriate conduct if they think it rises to something and they don't really know. So they want to protect their license, and they may report what might just be a disagreement, not necessarily danger to the child. And next thing you know, your soon-to-be ex has a child abuse allegation against them. Welcome to Getting Divorced Without Losing Your Mind. I'm Corey Shapiro. The goal of this podcast is to help you in a really important space. It's that space between being activated and before something really goes off the rails. Before you do something that has long-term consequences that you're not thinking about because you're thinking about right now. And I appreciate that. Might be really stressed right now. Might be really flooded right now. Might be in a lot of pain right now. You can't think longer. And today I want to talk about the difference between anxiety and anger and who's driving the bus. And the big message here is these emotions are human. These are natural to feel angry. And sometimes it feels great to feel angry. Sometimes it doesn't feel so good to be anxious. It's okay to feel those feelings. But acting on them, if it doesn't come from strategy that's thought out, might be a problem. So let's focus on this. Let's just do some concepts and definitions. I was trying to think of the difference between anger and anxiety. I'm not necessarily an expert on this. I've just been doing this and working on this myself. And I think anger is more public facing. It's like the tip of the iceberg. It's what we see. And sometimes it really works, anger. Really you get your way sometimes when you're angry. So it feels good sometimes, at least in the short term. And you see this in the divorce context, just a lot of allegations, a lot of just nastiness in the beginning. And then you have anxiety. And I think anxiety is a little bit more inward facing. So it seems like, both ends of the spectrum. One's outward anger, one is inward. That's anxiety. And, that's a lot of worry. That's a lot of uncertainty. Catastrophizing. That could be it with anxiety. So let's think about these concepts when I give you an example of how this plays out in a divorce, when these emotions are really driving things. Now, the anger one is so common in a divorce, and I read anger now so well that I used to be so reactive, activated by people's anger, and now I'm sort of immune to it. But you're usually going to see a lot of bold statements like, this is what's going to happen. This divorce, we're going to take everything. Something really nasty. They're going to say something. And then they're going to probably hire a very aggressive attorney. And I put aggressive in quotes because divorce law, by and large, is equitable. The court's trying to do something equitable. So how is getting an aggressive, angry attorney supporting an equitable result? What an aggressive attorney does, I think really well, is it gets you off balance. And then you might do something that could be looked at in a very negative way. And then all of a sudden, you're the bad person. That's what a really good attorney can do. They just pick on something and they make you look like you did something wrong when you did nothing wrong. That's anger. Now, anxiety, what I see is, you get a lot of worry when it comes with parents. And sometimes an example could be, a lot of people have different parenting styles, especially new parents. And that's where you really learn about someone when you have children, because you don't know how they were raised. No one talks about this on dating. It's only when you finally have a child, or maybe right before, that people talk about things that just seemed natural. How to raise a child, which is probably dated, because when they have a child, they're probably at least in their 20s, if not older. So all of this is dated. It's probably not best practices, but it's what they're used to. So maybe the way you see your spouse, who you're already negative, so you view your spouse through a negative perspective, everything they're doing is wrong. And then you see something, maybe they're holding the baby a certain way, maybe they're doing something a certain way, maybe the way they're, bathing the baby causes you all this worry. And you think that they're being inappropriate with that baby. And you honestly believe this. So you go to the pediatrician and you report your concerns, but with your energy, with your anxiety, the doctor doesn't know what to do. And because doctors are mandatory reporters, that means they have to report inappropriate conduct if they think it rises to something and they don't really know. So they want to protect their license, and they may report what might just be a disagreement, not necessarily danger to the child. And next thing you know, your soon-to-be ex has a child abuse allegation against them. So that's what happens with anxiety. See, these things can spiral. Now, sometimes, I'm not saying all times, sometimes there could be a problem. But a lot of times, it's just our heightened emotion and us seeing things through that filter that causes all these problems. All right, so my paraphrase for this episode is: anger is loud, anxiety is quiet. Either way, I pause. And I want to just focus on pausing here. Because if you're angry and if you're anxious, when you pause, you're just going to get more angry and more anxious. So the idea is to try to get you back to that architect side. Remember, the operator is that reactive side. The architect is our wiser side. So how do we get back to our wiser side? Because it feels so real. When we're angry and we're anxious, it feels so real. What do you mean we're wrong? We're right. Here's some ideas. First, the inexpensive way, journal. Can you journal? Keep these journals private if you can. If you're living together, this might be a problem. And do it on paper. I think it's really good to do it by hand. Journal for 10 minutes a day and see if that makes you feel any better. If not, maybe some type of therapist. There's more inexpensive therapy now with Better Talk, or you could just do it by telephone. Maybe talk to a therapist or a social worker at a lower price point. Maybe it's covered by your insurance. That's good. But what I'm concerned about is if you go to your attorney and you raise these concerns, this might be a problem because you don't know if your attorney is what I'm going to call a trusted advisor that's filtering what you say based on reality, or a hype man. A hype man is just going to enable you. So whatever anger you have, they're just going to empower that anger. And whatever anxiety you have, they're going to empower that. I don't know if that's necessarily the right course, because there might be avenues that you're going to go down that might blow up this whole family. So for example, in the case of the child abuse, someone getting a child abuse allegation, how can they go back to co-parenting, right? When maybe after all this reports, what they're going to investigate, maybe after a while, the report comes unfounded. That parent did nothing wrong. That parent's never going to be able to co-parent with you. They're never going to trust you. And there could have been a better way to handle that, maybe in a more therapeutic context. So you got to be careful what you do. And so I'm just concerned of going to a hype man type of an attorney who's just going to take what you say at face value rather than really getting to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter could be all these, this is where we need therapists, because it's all these unresolved issues in our upbringing and our unconscious behaviors that impact our behavior. All right. So my action step for you, make it clear. Be careful when you're really angry or really anxious before you do something. And you got to filter that out through journaling, therapy, or talk to a trusted advisor to make sure what you're doing is appropriate. Okay. Also, putting on my lawyer hat, if you really go aggressive, maybe the only person you're pissing off is the judge, who rules on your case, and that might blow through your budget, your time, energy, emotion, money budget. And if you're really anxious making all these allegations against a spouse about how they parent, but that nothing really happened and the court doesn't believe you anymore, you just really hurt your credibility. And there are some parents who may lose their custody, even though they're a great parent, except for these issues. They may lose primary custody because the court believes they're now what's called like a negative gatekeeper, that they are interfering with the other parent's relationship for no reason at all, except for their, own bad feelings about the other spouse. So you got to be careful. This is tough stuff, and I don't want you to fall into these traps. And I know it really feels real. It feels so real when you're angry and you feel you're so right and you're so worried. But that's why you need professionals. That's why you need to talk to someone who's been down this road before, and not just a hype person, not just a hype man. All right, now, I know this is heavy, but this is so important. This is where things derail. And I just want to drive this home. So, and I know this is a hard one. This is a hard one where we're being driven by anger and anxiety, and to do it right. But I believe you can do it. I believe you can overcome this. And I believe you can follow this action step, follow that journaling, go to that therapist, talk to an attorney who's not just going to enable you and empower you, but also going to talk sense and how this really plays out. Someone who has that experience. Okay. And if something's really wrong, I'm not trying to say you can't make sure to correct that, but a lot of times it might not be what it appears to be. And that's what I see in my practice. And that's what I want to help you with. All right, you got this. This is a tough one, but you can do it. I've done it. You can do it. And I've helped a lot of people through it. Thanks for listening. I'm Corey Shapiro.
This podcast offers general information only. It cannot replace legal advice. If you need tailored advice, contact an attorney licensed to practice in your area.